Are you ready? Welcome back, guys. We're gonna try this brand new thing I've never seen on YouTube. It's called the question and answer show.
Let's call it a Q&A.
Ooh, that could be catchy. That might stick.
Groundbreaking stuff. We asked questions through Instagram and YouTube, and we pulled 7 questions that we wanted to talk about today. You guys have questions, we have answers. This is all about our Unimog, transitioning into a Unimog from a shuttle bus, being on the road for as long as we have. This has been a huge transitional year for us with buying the Unimog, and so we are going to answer some of our most asked questions. The first question is, please, can we have the dimensions of the habitat space?
Good question.
So we have the dimensions of the inside and the outside of the box. So the exterior of the box is 90.5 inches wide. It is 82 inches tall, and the length of the box is 149.6 inches. The interior, so inside of the box, it is 84.8 inches wide. The height, really common question that we get all the time. What is the interior height of the box? 75.9 inches. The length inside, so the space we had to build our interior inside of, 144.25 inches.
All right, so those are the accurate numbers. Let's break down what that means, because most people don't really know how big things are in inches once you start going past a couple feet.
Right.
So 84.88 inches wide, that is just over 7 feet. 84 inches is 7 feet. That gets you an idea of the interior width. The bus at the widest point interior was closer to 7.5, 7.6, but it was narrower at the top. So overall, I would say it actually feels a little wider because you're not closed in, and it's very similar at the widest point of the bus. The second shuttle bus we did was right about 7 feet, so that's really close as far as width. But overall, yeah, it feels wider because there is no curve. So you have more space for your cupboards and everything up there. But that gives you the actual idea of how it feels in there. Very wide. It's about a foot wider than a van.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Oh, it's a lot. The width means so much more in these builds than you think it does. When you get into one of those panel vans, like the Mercedes or the Ram ProMasters, you feel the width immediately. You feel how narrow it is compared to our bus or this box. Something that has a 7-foot width, it makes a huge, huge difference.
Okay, so internal height, 75.9 inches. Basically that is 6'4", just under 6'4". We chose the exact size of this box. We could have been a bit larger. We could obviously have been smaller. The original numbers that Atkinson came back with us, kind of their default size they start with, it was a bit taller. I think it was 5 or 6 inches taller.
Yes.
And the width, we stayed with the width. We didn't change that. While it would have been nice to have that headroom, this vehicle is so high already off the ground. Yeah. We saw really no advantage. It only felt like a disadvantage to have that. And so we decided, what do we need? I'm 6'2", just over 6'2", so that's the headroom I want once everything's installed. We decided to go closer to 6'4". That allows for the flooring, the little bit of height of the ceiling planks with a little wiggle room, and particularly in the shower, we knew we had to raise that up a tiny bit. So we wanted that to be still just over 6 foot, so I could fit in there pretty comfortably. As far as the length of the box, we went with the longest box we could fit on this truck. In Europe, they have a pretty strict regulation in a lot of countries of what the overhang past the back axle can be. So we just deferred to Atkinson on that and let them work that number out. And this box is as long as it can be, where you can still go legally drive in a lot of countries. So we didn't want to run into that problem. I think in the US, it doesn't exist based on my own visual experience of a lot of RVs where there's things way past the axle. I don't know if those regulations exist. But on top of that, we don't really want to go any further because the vehicle will just really not operate well. And interior, that leaves us with just about 12 feet of space. So this is smaller than the bus. We lost almost 3 feet of interior space front to back. So that will probably roll us into the next question.
The second question was, how has it been downsizing into a smaller space? Those dimensions brought us to this question perfectly because we lost 3 feet of interior space going from our shuttle bus to this box. To most people, we were already living tiny in our shuttle bus. We had 15 feet of living space in our bus from the back of the driver's seat to the rear wall. 7.5 feet width at its largest point. To pretty much anyone, that's a small living space. And then we decided to take 3 feet off of that. A lot of people would think that we're completely crazy because we have 2 dogs now.
Yeah.
Not big dogs, small Chihuahua dogs, but that's 4 living creatures in this 12-foot box. But for us, the sacrifice was completely worth it. This decision was not made quickly. It was something that we really weighed our options. We looked at many different vehicles. We considered almost all the types of vehicles there are to consider. And we decided that we could make a living space that fit into 12 feet that was efficient enough for us to still spend whole days inside if it's raining wherever we are. The biggest factor in this decision was capability. But in all of our research, a Unimog was what we really wanted. We kept coming back to it for years. That was really what made the decision for us.
Downsizing smaller space, an adjustment for sure. Took a ton of planning to come up with a new layout that would capitalize on the space we had. I think we've done a good job. I'm pretty happy with it. Till we're out there living in it longer term, we won't know if we're a little frustrated. I feel like we've already adjusted. We know the reality of it. So I'm happy with the choice. I'm happy with the smaller truck.
We bump into each other more often. That's been a new thing that I thought we were done with after we got out of our van, but it's really taken me back to those van days.
It's not anywhere nearly as bad as the van because
No.
like the walkway was this wide in the van.
We lived in a 1987, same year as this Unimog actually, a 1987 Ford E250 camper van. So just an Econoline with a high top essentially. And we would bump into each other in the kitchen. You'd be like, just let me get dressed.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm just trying to make coffee. And we've kind of gone back to those days in this box until we figure out how to really navigate our space.
It's an adjustment, but we're super happy with it. I'm really happy we went with this truck as opposed to one of the bigger ones. Any bigger than this, you just start really losing capability. We're fully aware that this isn't the same as just taking the truck on the trail without a camper, but we do feel like this is the pinnacle and the superior choice to put a camper that you live in full time to go cool places. Even if that means the truck can't do everything it could do without the camper, you're not getting a camper where we're going to be able to go with any other truck.
And that actually segues us into our next question. Someone on Instagram asked, why a Unimog? And this is a very valid question. I think we popped out of nowhere with a Unimog because we're in the United States and it's a pretty rare vehicle in the United States. You're seeing more than ever, but in Australia, in Europe, I mean, especially Germany, everywhere other than the United States, Unimogs are pretty familiar to people. And here, I feel like if someone comes up to us at a gas station or when we're camping and they know what it is, that's a pretty rare thing.
Yeah.
They already know. They're not asking, what is that?
It's rare.
They're saying, holy crap, that's a Unimog. That's pretty rare. So why a Unimog? No computers. Its capability is unmatched. It's one of the world's most capable vehicles. We can work on it ourselves. Mercedes is supported worldwide in every market, and we want to travel globally eventually. That was a huge one for us, is to not just get an American-made truck and drive it to South America where there wouldn't be as much support for it. All of those things are huge factors, and it also comes down to we liked how it looked. It's a really cool looking vehicle. It's a cool looking truck. This is our whole life. It's not our weekender. It's not something that we take a few trips in a year. We live in this thing full time, and we thought a Unimog encompassed everything that we needed for full-time living. It's the ground clearance, it's the portal axles, it's the gearing ratios, it's how the whole truck is set up mechanically. It just checked all of these boxes for us. The suspension is crazy. Its articulation is wild. We love this truck. I think that's become pretty clear.
Why not a Unimog? It's a real question.
We got to that part. Why not?
The other big thing here is we wanted the best truck to bring a camper or our house somewhere that you could have. And people that are more into the off-roading space or idea are going to immediately go, you put the camper on there, you've reduced its capability. While that is true, we totally understand that. The fact is, you're not going to put a house on any other truck and be able to get to where we'll be able to get to, right? So it's not the same as just taking the truck out, wheeling or whatever, and doing crazy stuff. But also, no other habitat is going where we're going, you know? We're going to do things that will take 50% of the truck's capability that would take 100% of a lot of other vehicles, of pushing yourself to the absolute limit. The point is to not be pushing yourself to those limits as much as you can. I don't think there's a better platform out there, in our opinion, that we've seen.
We're not wheeling with our house on the back, that's for sure. But a Unimog is going to take us farther with our home than any other vehicle.
This next question we got is a good one, and it's, what are your thoughts on full-time living, part-time living, or just weekend getaways, pros and cons? Great question. This one encompasses a lot of answers. It's so variable to who you are and what you're doing.
I would say the pros of full-time living, you can dig in so much more. You can get way into the backcountry. As long as you have water, you can stay there. Now with Starlink, you can work from the road if you're able to do that. There's a lot of pros. You can really just settle into road life and go from place to place, see things you wouldn't have time to see if you're just traveling on weekends. Cons, very stressful, can be financially draining. If you're having problems with your vehicle, you're having problems with your house.
Yeah.
If your truck is in the shop, your house is in the shop and you're sitting in that mechanic shop waiting room. It can drain you mentally as well, just the constant, where are we going to go? That's something I think you really, really have to adjust to.
You have to add up the balance of what you're getting for what it's going to cost, not just money, but your sacrifice. A lot of the pros and cons from a full-time perspective kind of work hand in hand, right? So pros, like you're saying, getting out there, a huge one that most people will never experience in their life, at least in our like Western culture, is actually disengaging from the machine, whatever you want to call it. And even people that go out and camp, it takes a few days to weeks to months to disengage from the kind of crazy cultural move thing. Even for us doing this for many years now, and having really big chunks of time where we're completely away from like being in regular day-to-day society and times where we're back in it, it takes us an adjustment period. When you first do this, you go out somewhere and completely disconnect. It's very uncomfortable, actually. I think for most people, you've lived your whole life completely connected to people or being able to just go get supplies or whatever as soon as you want to, and then you can't. And a big part of it really is probably just the interaction and having to kind of like be within to a degree. Of course, nowadays, like you can communicate if you want to with your cell phone or whatever, internet, but it's an adjustment.
And part-time, the pros of that would be you get a break from whatever you're doing for work. Ideally with part-time, what I'm envisioning is you're working, saving up, then you're on the road for a chunk of time. So you're working really hard and then you're on the road, and you get that relief, you get that reprieve from your day-to-day life, you get a change. Every day can be different if you want it to be, or you can sit at a camp spot for 2 weeks and just decompress. Cons, when that rest period comes to an end and you have to go back and make money. I think long-term, part-time is the most sustainable because you have a home base.
Sure.
You can go there, you can work on projects with your truck or your house, whatever you need. You have that space that you can go, but you can also travel. You also have a home on wheels and you can get in it and you can drive and explore. I really think that we're probably headed for that, somewhere with that balance long term.
I think while we are full-time and we have always lived in our vehicles full-time, we have been seasonal for the most part. We've had years where we've had much more time on the road and years with less. I think it's part of why we lasted so long. We've seen a lot of people come and go, and that's typical. Most people only do it for a year or two. Some people do last a long time. We've always kind of had seasonal things, so we always are in a vehicle. We're in it full time. Even when we're back in New York, if we're at the shop or we're doing music, we are still in our van full time or our bus or now our Unimog. But we did have kind of like a time off of just trying to find the next camp spot. So we kind of had like roots. And we've had some pretty strong roots in Arizona too, that it feels like home in a lot of ways. So I do think we're full-time, but like a lot of it, you might say that's part-time in a way, right?
I guess, yeah. While we're living in the vehicle,
That's the only difference. People go back to a house,
yeah,
right? And it's spread out. And we don't do that,
it's seasonal. Just kind of seasonal traveling.
Yeah. The other thing was, just weekend getaways. This is, I never really, I guess we did this before we had the van, like going on camp trips. I hated that actually.
But we were touring.
Yeah.
If you don't know a lot about our background, we are both musicians. It's what we've spent the last decade of our lives doing. When COVID hit, that really put the brakes on everything for us because we were live musicians and live music completely went away. Then we got into building the buses, and now we're doing the Unimog. So we haven't gone back to live music in that way, but hopefully in the future. So way before we did any of this or started the YouTube channel, we were in our van for 4 years, and that van came about because we were touring in my little HHR.
Sure.
We'd have to get hotels or sleep in the HHR because we're just poor musicians. You didn't have a lot of money for hotels most of the time. And we thought to ourselves, what if we never have to stop touring?
Yeah.
And so we got the van, and that's how that came into our lives. Just doing weekend getaways, that was the worst for me.
Didn't work for me.
It was the most stressful because you would have to pack everything and you're rushing because maybe you're done with work on Friday and you're rushing to get everything packed, and then you're rushing to leave, and then you're rushing from place to place to place, and then it's Sunday and you gotta go back and you're done already, and it felt like you were just starting to unwind enough to enjoy yourself, and now you gotta go back. And so it's chaotic.
Yeah.
But if it's your only choice, I'd be doing it. That's what I'd be doing.
It's very dependent on who you are. If you're living in a place you like and you enjoy what you're doing, and then being able to drive out for a couple days and hang out with some friends in the desert or in the forest, cool.
Yeah.
For me, it did not work. I hated it. Not even just the touring. We would go do little camp trips in the tent and stuff. I liked the part of being there for 2 or 3 days. The feeling I felt driving back every time on a Sunday or a Monday was the absolute dread. That feeling, to me, is the worst feeling in the world. It feels completely imprisoning, and it's basically what led us to where we are. Weekender, not for me. If you enjoy what you're doing and where you live, I think that's a great option for a lot of people.
So I guess these are our thoughts on all the different styles of travel.
Yeah, I mean, they're once again, that could be a whole video.
Next question. Hello. Hi. Have you had any technical problems with the vehicle, such as brakes, frame, suspension, as the Mog has only covered 18,000 miles and it is an Army truck? So this was pulled from a longer question, but essentially this person is asking if we have had any issues with the vehicle so far. The answer to this question is probably a boring one, but we've not really used the truck yet. We've driven it around locally. We've driven it to test the things that we're building. We took it on a slightly longer drive a few hours away and back to visit some friends. So no problems yet, but that's not really surprising. What we are looking at is when we get in this truck and we drive it out west for our shakedown trip, that is going to be the moment of truth. And to be honest, we're expecting something.
Yeah.
I would be so surprised if we made it to New Mexico or Arizona or Utah from New York, where we currently are, without any issue. Because the bottom line is this is a 37-year-old truck. Now, before we bought it from Atkinson, we had them go through the whole truck. That was something that we paid for, that they did. They went through and they have...
It's like 140 point inspection or something crazy.
Yes,
it's a big number.
Many points.
They check everything.
Many points of inspection. So we had them do that. We had them update or fix anything that they found. We had them replace all the belts and seals, anything that could have been rotting away from it sitting. So I think that that will save us a lot of headache. Or at least I hope it does, because those are a lot of the little problem points that could cause a big issue on the road. So hopefully we've already addressed any of those issues, but we do know the weak points of our truck. We've read a lot about it. We have the workshop manuals. So it's kind of a wait and see sort of thing. Once we get on the road, we're going to see how the truck does. It's done great so far, but we can't really say we've given it a good test.
To this point, the truck has been incredible, absolutely flawless. Everything's operating well. We've probably put 500 miles on it, something like that. So not a lot of miles, but I know plenty of people that get trucks like this or similar that their first year or two, before they're even really taking anywhere, they are running into problems and they're changing things out. So I think us choosing to go through Atkinson, who has a great reputation, they're pretty good at vetting out trucks that are in good shape and going through them. I think that has served us well already. I think ultimately it will save us a lot of headaches, but yeah, it's a vehicle, so I expect there'll be some things at some point. Yeah. But so far it's been great. Next question up is always a big one everybody wants to know. And this question was, how much did the vehicle and box cost? So a good question. I'm glad they asked both parts because the box is not original to the vehicle. So there is two different prices here. And this, another one of those things that can vary so widely based on where you're getting it, the year of the truck, what you're choosing to do with a Habitat or not do.
There's a lot of costs associated with this truck, and we don't know our full build total yet. So we'd like to talk about the cost in a future video. But this question is just the vehicle and the box. So we got both of these things in the UK. So we were paying in pounds converted from US. So we'll give you both numbers with the conversion. So the truck was 34,000 pounds, and the conversion at the time, which is always changing, was $42,000. The box and the subframe, which we bought as one price. The subframe is connected to the box above and the truck underneath. Atkinson did both of those things for us, so it was one price. The box and the subframe was 26,000 pounds, which converted to 32,000 USD.
So that's a great point. The box and the subframe, we're paying for the panels themselves, the material to make the subframe, but also all of the labor to assemble it. So they assembled all of that. So that's what that total number is. It's not just the raw materials. We talked about maybe doing it ourselves at one point. It was difficult to source the panels that we wanted to get. That obviously would be less if you were to do the labor. These are pretty high stake things. So I felt really good about this number at the end, especially considering we were already paying shipping for the truck to get here. The shipping that we were running to just get panels to our shop, we were looking at several $1,000s. So already having the other shipping being paid, that helped offset some of the labor costs of putting it together and took a lot of headache away. You could range a ton on these trucks. We were looking at several trucks just from Atkinson, as well as looking at getting them independently. Obviously, you could get some trucks for cheaper, but if you're not there to look at them, we felt it was a huge risk to just buy a truck from a farmer in Germany or the Netherlands or somebody else selling it without being able to look at it or have someone look at it. So we obviously paid a bit more to have a third party already have sourced the vehicle. So you could do it for less, But even from them, there's a range of trucks they have. One of the 1300Ls we looked at was, I think, $12,000 less, but it did not have the Mercedes factory stock fast axle and turbo that this does. We would have been paying to do that anyways, and when you did the math, it was about the same, because it was about $10,000 to do the labor if it went well on all that. So, a lot of things to consider.
To be honest, $42,000 for the truck itself. Phenomenal price. This is our dream truck for $42,000.
And it's in great shape.
In great shape. Here in the U.S. with the shuttle buses, you could pay $50,000 for a shuttle bus and not have the capability that we're looking for in this Unimog. Expedition vehicles and these 4x4 trucks are in a different category of pricing than the vans and the buses. All in all, we would hope to be under $150,000 for the whole build, everything all in with this truck. It is our full-time home. It's an expedition vehicle. It's off-road capable. Getting something like that for $150,000 is a steal. You could pay that here in the U.S. for a brand new Sprinter conversion. You could pay more. So we're getting exactly what we wanted for $42,000 for the truck and $32,000 for the home. Everybody's budget is different. Everybody's life is different, and this is what worked for us.
Next question that a lot of people like to ask and some people like to joke about is speed, and then we'll talk about fuel efficiency, so miles per gallon. Speed, obviously, it only goes 20 miles an hour. It's a tractor.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. So this truck has the Mercedes stock, they call fast axle ratio. So it goes a little faster than the original, just 1300L in its normal gearing. Hypothetically, on paper, they claim you can get to about 63 miles per hour. Our truck, personally in our experience, likes to go at about 58. We've seen 60 downhill.
Downhill, the wind at our back.
Yeah, so that's not the fastest, but while that might sound slow, if it didn't have the fast axle ratio, you'd be maybe getting to 50, which that's a significant difference. Being able to go about 60 on a road versus going probably just under 50 is a huge difference. We're more than happy with this speed. We want to travel slow anyways. Maybe we'll avoid some of the really fast highways out west that are like 75, 80. I don't know, we'll see when we get there. Being about 60 miles per hour is a good speed for us, and I wouldn't want to go faster, actually.
The bottom line is, even in the bus, you have your house behind you, and our bus was the 6.8 liter Triton V10. It was a Ford E450. It could easily go 70.
75.
It could go 75. You could get up to 80. I felt extremely uncomfortable going those speeds in that bus. That is so fast to have everything you own behind you.
More than enough speed for us, not concerned about that at all.
And the MPG.
As far as miles per gallon, and this is diesel, the spec sheet on these says 12 to 14 miles per gallon. I've seen people say all kinds of different numbers. We're probably going to be getting around 10. We'll have to do like a full test, especially with it done and all the weight in it and the water and driving it long term. I anticipate we'll probably be between 10 and 12 once we actually get it on the road with everything in it, which we're more than happy with. Some people might say, oh, that's not a lot, but other people might have expected to say like 5.
Yeah.
Because some big trucks do only get like 5 or 6 miles per gallon. So not really a change for us. Our van also got about 10 miles per gallon. Our bus was at about 10 miles per gallon, and this will probably be pretty comparable.
And the final question, does the Unimog have a name?
I think it does have a name, yeah?
It does have a name. We were drinking some Moosehead Lagers, which is a Canadian beer.
It's like the Yuengling of Canada.
Yeah, we're quite close to Canada where we are. We were drinking some Moosehead Lagers, and we were looking at the Unimog. I think it's while we were working on the Unimog, and we said to ourselves, Moose Mog.
Moose the Mog.
Moose the Mog sounds pretty good. Our Mog's name is Moose. We even have tiny stuffed moose in the cab, so it's officially official.
It's official. We went through a lot of names. We thought about calling it Snoop Mog. We thought that would be fun.
Snoop Moggy Mog.
If it was red, Clifford the Big Red Mog, obviously,
Very solid.
but it's not red.
No.
There was a few other ones, but moose just feels good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moose. And that makes me want to keep the paint on the front because that color suits Moose the Mog.
Yes, it does.
So
Moose.
we'll see.
All right, that's enough rambling from us. We love to ramble in these Q&As, but we hope that you enjoyed it. This was kind of like a little hangout session talking about the Unimog. We are obsessed with this vehicle, and we hope that you've been enjoying watching us turn it into our full-time home just as much as we have loved owning and building this truck. We are about halfway through the build series, maybe a little less, but we just wanted to kind of do a little mid-build palette cleanser, answer some of your questions, and just hang out with you guys for a little bit.
Yeah, I think we'll come back when the build is close to done or finished completely, and man, we could go on and on with a lot of these questions. So feel free to send more questions. We would love to answer some more specific questions if people have them.
And if you've enjoyed this video, we made this in the style of our exclusive Patreon comment series. For every build episode over on Patreon, we film a commentary where we watch the episode with you. It's in this very same style. So if you've enjoyed this and you want to see more behind the scenes moments, things that went on that we just didn't have time to talk about in the episode, you can head over to Patreon and get access to all of those exclusive videos for $5 and up.
And that's all we have for you today. Thanks for hanging out, guys, and we'll see you next time.